Hello, I'm Mary V. Today, let's talk about important practice tips. So, the way you practice can make all the difference to your progress. So, let's go through a few things that you really need to do every time you practice. So, after warming up, one of the most important things to do when you're practicing is to practice the bow separately from the left hand. So let's take a look at practicing the bow. And one of the first things you need to do is to place your bow properly with the correct touch on the string at the contact point. That's called the contact point between the string and the hair of the bow. And that's got to be sort of consistent. So if your bow is wandering around all over the place, it's going to really make a bad sound like this. Okay, because you can hear the sideways movement. So you need to get used to putting your bow down on the contact point and keeping it there all the way down the down bow and all the way back up on the up bow. Now it makes it easier to do that if you really look at the contact point. Aim to put the bow down on the contact point and then practice that over and over and over again. So that's a very important thing to do. The second thing that you need to do every time you practice is to practice actually putting your bow on the string. A lot of times people are just throwing their bow on or letting it fall on like this. You can always hear that. That's a bad start because the energy of the bow stroke is missing when the bow is just thrown on like that. And there's usually a little bump and a tremble. So what we've got to do is again look at the contact point and place the bow on just for a millisecond before we move the bow. So the little click that you hear at the beginning when you place the bow on the string and then immediately start moving, that's desirable, that little click. That gives the correct impulse for the bow to engage the string properly and vibrate it. And do remember that the string vibrating is the thing that makes the sound. So you've got to vibrate it equally and evenly all the way through with a really nice start. So you really need to practice that and look at the contact point, place your bow, and try and make the sound very even all the way down and all the way up. So the next part of practicing is to play the left hand separately. Just do that so that the brain has time to really absorb and concentrate on one thing at a time. Now, because when we practice, we try to coordinate everything together, the left and the right. Something will deteriorate. If you're concentrating on the bow, then the left hand might deteriorate and not play in tune. And when we're concentrating on our left hand, it's quite normal that the bow starts deteriorating because we're concentrating on our left hand. And that's why it's so important to practice the bowing on the open strings separately so that it becomes something natural that you can do. So that by the time you add your left hand, you're actually making a nice sound with your bowing. Because when you're concentrating on the left hand and you're making a dreadful sound with your bow, because it's going all over the place and it's very uneven, the whole thing sounds really bad. It's very, very difficult to progress like that. So concentrate on the bow on its own and make sure that you can do short notes and long notes and everything together. Now, the other thing to do is that when you're practicing and you start to develop your playing between the right and the left. Sometimes you can get a bit stiff and sore here, or actually have pain. And many people just ignore it because they think it's part of violin playing, but as a matter of fact, it's not. So if you're practicing, say, scales, and you're managing to play everything together quite nicely, it's very, very good to keep on playing simple things just to check that everything up here in your shoulder rest or your pad, your head and your shoulder and your arm are nice and relaxed and there's no pain anywhere. So you can check that out using simple scales, and do that every single time just to check that everything is still okay. And make sure that the more you concentrate, that you don't start clamping or tightening up. The whole point about practice is to make sure that you can do everything in a most natural and pain-free way so that you can develop it. So take time to investigate and sort out things to do with your shoulder rest, your chin rest, and your general comfort on the violin. It's incredibly important. Another thing that's good to practice regularly is developing your sound on a single note using a bit of vibrato. So that really develops your ear when you listen, and try to make the sound as beautiful and as even as possible, and try to eliminate any little shakes in the bow. And that means getting your muscles, the muscles of your bow arm, sort of out of the way so that the bow can just have a free passage all the way down. So these fundamental things can be easily incorporated into your practice, and they should be, because they contain the seeds of great development, especially the way that you put your bow on the string. Just by putting your bow on the string properly, you create something called catch and release, and it's really lovely. So watch out for that little click and keep on practicing until your bowing becomes easier and easier, and then concentration becomes easier when you're concentrating on the left hand. So I hope you get on well with your practice, and I'll say bye-bye. Bye.